Welcome back to the deep dive. Our goal here, as always, is to take the sources you send us and really pull out the core insights, get you up to speed quickly.
And today we're picking back up with Mr. Hostler's lecture notes. Really helpful stuff for nursing anatomy and physiology students.
Right, these are his lecture guides based on Chapter 11 of The Human Body in Health and Illness by Herlihy, but tailored for those first-year students.
Exactly. Last time, we used these notes to talk about the spinal cord. Remember, the kind of central relay, handling signals, reflexes.
Yeah, the information highway hub.
Precisely. And now we're branching out. Literally, we're moving into the peripheral nervous system, the PNS.
Okay, so this is the network connecting that spinal cord hub to, well, everything else.
Yeah.
Skin, muscles, organs.
You got it. The entire
Right.
network out there. And our mission for this deep dive, following Mr. Hostler's lead, is to really unpack the wiring. How is this system structured?
Looking at its different jobs, the types of neurofibers, the chemicals involved, the neurotransmitters.
Exactly. We want to understand the architecture, especially for movement and, regulating all the automatic stuff inside, clarifying the pathways and the chemistry.
Okay, so thinking about this network, the notes mention signals flow in two main directions. Can you break that down?
Sure. It's basically a two-way street. You have afferent neurons, think A for arriving. They carry sensory info from the body to the central nervous system.
So feeling things, temperature, pain, that kind of input.
Exactly. Telling the brain and spinal cord what's happening out there. Then you have efferent neurons. Think E for exiting.
Sending signals out from the CNS.
Right. These are the motor commands telling muscles to contract, glands to do their thing.
Got it. Afferent is sensory in, efferent is motor out. And you said we're focusing on the efferent side for this deep dive.
That's the plan, those outgoing command lines.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Hostler's notes lay out how these efferent pathways split into two big systems.
Okay, two major ways the signals go out. What's the first one?
The somatic nervous system. This is the one you're consciously aware of controlling.
Voluntary stuff, like deciding to pick up this pen.
Exactly. Moving your skeletal muscles, walking, talking, typing. That's the somatic system at work. You decide, it happens.
Okay, voluntary control. What's the other efferent system then?
That's the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic kind of means automatic or self-governing.
Stuff we don't think about. Breathing, heart rate.
Precisely. Digestion, blood pressure, glands secreting hormones. It manages all those background processes that keep you running without conscious effort.
So somatic, voluntary muscles, autonomic, involuntary body functions, that's a clear split.
It is. And then the autonomic system itself divides further. Two major divisions here.
Okay, digging deeper into the automatic stuff. Those are the famous ones, right?
The very same. You have the sympathetic division. This is your fight or flight system.
The emergency mode.
Gets you ready for action.
Absolutely. Kicks in during stress, danger, excitement, increases heart rate, opens airways, widens pupils, shifts blood to muscles.
Slows down things you don't need right then, like digestion. Exactly. Prepares you for intense activity. Its nerves originate in the middle part of the spinal cord, the thoracic and lumbar regions.
Makes sense. Ready to react. What's the other division?
The parasympathetic division. This is the rest and digest system.
The calming counterpart.
Right. It's active when you're relaxed and safe. It slows the heart rate back down, stimulates digestion and nutrient absorption, promotes repair. Its nerves come from the brainstem and the very bottom of the spinal cord, the sacral region.
Okay. Sympathetic for stress, parasympathetic for calm. The notes mention we'll cover their specific effects more later, but the focus now is the underlying structure.
Yes, the wiring and the chemistry. How are they built differently to achieve these opposing roles?
This sounds crucial. The notes emphasize a key difference in the number of neurons used between the somatic and autonomic systems.
Ah, yes, this is fundamental. The somatic system, the voluntary one, it's incredibly direct. Uses just one motor neuron.
One single neuron, all the way from the CNS.
All the way. Starts in the spinal cord or brainstem, and that one neuron stretches right out to connect directly with the skeletal muscle fiber.
Wow, so like a dedicated express line? Seems built for speed.
It really is. Fast, precise control for your voluntary actions. Now, the autonomic system, that's different. It uses a two-neuron chain.
Two neurons to get the signal out. Why the extra step?
Good question. It starts with what's called a preganglionic neuron. This one begins in the CNS, just like the somatic one.
Okay, first neuron starts centrally.
But it doesn't go all the way. It travels out to a structure called a
A
ganglion.
ganglion. Remind me what that is.
It's basically a cluster of nerve cell bodies sitting outside the CNS, out in the periphery.
Like a little relay station.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The preganglionic neuron synapses connects and passes the signal to the second neuron in the chain within this ganglion.
And that second neuron has a name too.
Yep, the postganglionic neuron. This one picks up the signal in the ganglion and carries it the rest of the way to the actual target organ, the heart muscle, smooth muscle in the gut, a gland.
So the path is CNS, preganglionic neuron, ganglion, synapse, postganglionic neuron, target organ. That ganglion step is the big difference for autonomic.
It is, and the notes point out it's not just passive. The ganglion allows for a bit more processing, maybe amplifying or distributing the signal before it goes to the target. It adds a layer of control.
Okay, so all autonomic signals use this two-neuron chain with a ganglion.
Yeah.
But do the sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions set up this chain the same way? They do such different things.
Excellent point. No, they don't. The arrangement of these two neurons is distinctly different, and it perfectly matches their function. Mr. Hostler's notes make this very clear.
Let's break that down. Sympathetic first, the fight-or-flight wiring. How's this chain arranged?
For the sympathetic system, that first neuron, the preganglionic one starting in the spinal cord, is relatively short.
Short first step, where does it go?
It travels just a short distance to reach a ganglion that's located very close to the spinal cord itself. Think of that chain of sympathetic ganglia running alongside the spine.
Ah, I remember seeing diagrams of that sympathetic chain. Okay, so ganglion close to the source.
Right. Which means the second neuron, the postganglionic one, has to be long to reach all the different target organs throughout the body.
Short preganglionic, ganglion near spine, long postganglionic to target. How does that setup help fight or flight?
It's designed for a rapid, widespread response, like a broadcast. A signal hits that nearby ganglion, and from there, it can quickly diverge and activate many long postganglionic fibers going to lots of different organs simultaneously.
So you can activate the heart, lungs, blood vessels, adrenal glands, all pretty much at once.
Precisely. It's built for that system-wide alert. Now, contrast that with the parasympathetic division.
The rest and digest wiring, how does it differ?
Here, the preganglionic neuron is typically long. It travels a much greater distance from the brainstem or sacral spinal cord, heading out towards the specific organ it's going to control.
Okay, a long first step this time. Where's its ganglion?
This is the key. The parasympathetic ganglion is located either very close to or often actually inside the wall of the target organ itself.
Wow, the relay station's right at the destination.
Exactly. And because the ganglion is right there, the postganglionic neuron, the second one, only needs to be very short. Just a tiny jump from the ganglion to the target cells within that organ.
Long preganglionic, ganglion at the target, short postganglionic. How does that serve the rest and digest function?
It allows for very specific, localized control, fine-tuning. The parasympathetic system can activate, say, just the stomach for digestion or just the salivary glands without triggering a massive response across the whole body.
More like sending a direct message to one specific department rather than a company-wide alarm.
That's a great way to put it. Precision versus broadcast. The wiring location really dictates the scope of the effect.
Fascinating how structure drives function there. Okay, we've got the wiring differences. Now let's talk chemistry. The notes introduce cholinergic and adrenergic fibers. What do those terms mean?
These terms describe the type of neurotransmitter a neuron releases, the chemical messenger it uses.
Okay, so cholinergic means?
Cholinergic fibers release acetylcholine, and the notes are clear. We should always say the full word. Acetylcholine.
Acetylcholine, got it. And adrenergic?
Adrenergic fibers release norepinephrine. Again, full word. Norepinephrine.
Norepinephrine, okay. And these labels, cholinergic and adrenergic, they mostly apply to that final neuron in the chain, the postganglionic one, right? Where it hits the target organ.
That's generally how they're used, yes. It helps distinguish the chemical signal arriving at the heart or the gut, for example, though acetylcholine pops up elsewhere too.
All right, let's tackle cholinergic fibers first. Where do we find these neurons releasing acetylcholine in the systems we've discussed? And what do they connect to? What are the receptors?
Okay, acetylcholine is released by a few key players. First, all preganglionic neurons in the autonomic system, both sympathetic and parasympathetic, are cholinergic.
Wait, both. So the first neuron in both chains uses acetylcholine.
Correct. That first signal from the CNS to the ganglion is always acetylcholine.
And what does it bind to in the ganglion?
It binds to nicotinic receptors. These receptors are located on the postganglionic neuron cell bodies within the ganglion.
Okay, so Step 1 in autonomic pathways. Acetylcholine onto nicotinic receptors in the ganglion. Universal first step.
Exactly. Now, where else is acetylcholine used? The notes tell us that the postganglionic neurons of the parasympathetic division are also cholinergic.
Ah, so the second neuron in the rest and digest pathway also uses acetylcholine, but this time it's releasing it at the target organ.
That's right. And at these parasympathetic target organs, like your digestive tract muscles or your heart muscle, the acetylcholine binds to a different type of receptor called muscarinic receptors.
Okay, so acetylcholine is busy,
Yeah.
used by all preganglionic neurons, hitting nicotinic receptors, and by parasympathetic postganglionic neurons, hitting muscarinic receptors. Different receptors for different locations.
You've got it perfectly. Now, what about the adrenergic fibers, the ones releasing norepinephrine?
Based on the pattern, I'm guessing these are mainly in the sympathetic system's second step.
You nailed it. The postganglionic neurons of the sympathetic division are adrenergic. They release norepinephrine onto their target organs.
Okay, so the fight-or-flight second neuron uses norepinephrine, unlike the parasympathetic one. And what receptors does norepinephrine target?
Norepinephrine binds to adrenergic receptors on the target cells, and these come in subtypes, most notably alpha receptors and beta receptors.
Alpha and beta, do they do different things?
Yes, the effect depends on which receptor type is present. The notes give examples. Alpha receptors often cause constriction, like tightening blood vessels. Beta receptors might increase heart rate or relax airways in the lungs. So same chemical, norepinephrine, but different effects depending on the receptor lock it fits into.
So the target tissue's receptor determines the response to norepinephrine, alpha or beta.
Precisely. And the notes give a really handy summary rule to tie all this together, the pathways, the chemicals, the receptors.
Oh good, a cheat sheet. Let's hear it.
Okay, the core rules are: 1. All preganglionic neurons, sympathetic and parasympathetic, are cholinergic, releasing acetylcholine onto nicotinic receptors in the ganglia.
Check. First step is always acetylcholine on nicotinic.
2. Postganglionic parasympathetic neurons are cholinergic, releasing acetylcholine onto muscarinic receptors at the target organ.
Right. Parasympathetic finish line. Acetylcholine on muscarinic.
3. Postganglionic sympathetic neurons are adrenergic, releasing norepinephrine onto alpha or beta receptors at the target organ.
Okay. Sympathetic finish line. Norepinephrine on alpha or beta. That does simplify it.
It's a really useful framework. And to make sure it sticks, Mr. Hostler's notes include some challenge questions, scenarios to apply this.
Good idea. Let's work through them. Scenario 1. Voluntary action. You decide, I'm going for a jog, and you send signals to your leg muscles. What system? 1 neuron or 2? Chemical and receptor at the muscle.
Okay, deciding to jog, moving skeletal muscles, that screams somatic nervous system.
Voluntary. And somatic is the simple one, right?
Yep, just one motor neuron straight from the CNS to the muscle and the chemical.
That single neuron releases acetylcholine,
Okay.
which binds to nicotinic receptors directly on the skeletal muscle fiber, causes
Okay.
contraction.
Simple enough. Somatic, one neuron, acetylcholine, nicotinic on muscle.
Okay. Scenario 2. You're jogging now. Automatically, heart speeds up, airways open wider. What system handles these involuntary adjustments? How's its neuron chain set up? Short, long. And what's the chemical and receptor at the heart and lungs?
Okay, jogging is exertion. Body needs more oxygen, faster blood flow. Sounds like sympathetic activation.
Exactly. Fight or flight supporting the activity. And sympathetic is autonomic, so it uses the 2 neuron chain.
Right, the one with the short preganglionic neuron.
Releasing acetylcholine onto nicotinic receptors in that ganglion near the spine.
And then the long postganglionic neuron travels out.
Right. And that long sympathetic postganglionic neuron is adrenergic. It releases norepinephrine.
Norepinephrine. And in the heart and lungs, what receptors does it hit? The notes mention beta.
Correct. Norepinephrine binds to beta receptors on heart muscle cells, speeding them up, and smooth muscle around airways, relaxing them, opening them up.
So, sympathetic, short pre-long post, norepinephrine onto beta receptors for heart-lungs during exercise.
Got it.
Last one, scenario 3, post-jog, post-dinner, relaxing. Heart rate slows, digestion ramps up. Which division is taking over?
Yeah.
Where's its ganglion located? And what's the chemical and receptor at, say, the digestive organs?
Relaxing, digesting sounds like the opposite. Parasympathetic, rest and digest.
Definitely. And parasympathetic is also autonomic, 2 neurons. But the wiring is different,
Ah, right. The long preganglionic neuron.
traveling way out. And its ganglion is located where?
Near or even inside the target organ wall, like the stomach.
Perfect, which means the postganglionic neuron is very short.
Long pre, ganglion at target,
Okay.
short post, And the chemical signal from that short postganglionic neuron.
It's cholinergic. It releases acetylcholine.
Acetylcholine again. And for parasympathetic targets like the gut, it binds to muscarinic receptors, stimulating smooth muscle contraction for digestion, gland secretion, etc.
Okay, parasympathetic, long pre-short post, ganglion neuron organ, acetylcholine onto muscarinic receptors for digestion. Wow, walking through those really connects the dots.
It does, doesn't it? It shows how the specific wiring and chemistry produce those distinct bodily responses. So let's just quickly recap the big takeaways from the notes for this dive.
Good idea. Fire away.
Okay, PNS connects CNS to the body, efferent pathways go out, somatic system, one cholinergic neuron to skeletal muscle, nicotinic receptors, autonomic system, two neuron chain, preganglionic, postganglionic, via a ganglia.
And within autonomic, all preganglionic neurons release acetylcholine onto nicotinic receptors in the ganglion.
Check. Then, postganglionic parasympathetic neurons release acetylcholine onto muscarinic receptors at the target.
While postganglionic sympathetic neurons release norepinephrine onto alpha or beta receptors at their target.
And remember the wiring. Sympathetic, short pre, long post, ganglia near spine for broadcast. Parasympathetic, long pre, short post, ganglia near and target for precision.
And those terms, cholinergic and adrenergic, refer to the final chemical released by that postganglionic neuron, acetylcholine or norepinephrine.
Getting those distinctions clear, the divisions, the neuron layouts, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, nicotinic, muscarinic, alpha, beta receptors, it's absolutely fundamental stuff.
It really paints a picture of incredibly sophisticated parallel control systems running automatically.
It's quite elegant when you break it down.
So maybe the final thought for everyone listening. Think about this intricate wiring and chemistry we just unpacked. One system built for speed and spread, the other for calm precision. How does knowing about this physical setup, the short versus long neurons, the specific chemicals, change how you think about your own, felt experience of stress versus relaxation?
That's a deep connection to ponder, linking the microscopic details to our everyday feelings.
And looking ahead, the source notes suggest the next logical step is to dive into specific anatomical parts of the PNS, starting with the cranial nerves.
Yeah, names, functions, maybe some clinical connections there. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the wiring of the peripheral nervous system. Keep exploring those connections.